Hello everybody, welcome back to another session in HPSG. In the previous videos we have looked at binding theory. In this video we are going to look at imperatives and how anaphors occur in imperatives and how they are bound by their subjects. We begin with the structure of imperatives. Look at the following sentences. Protect him and show him the way. Protect him, protect is a transitive verb, so there is one object. Show is a ditransitive verb, so there are two objects in it. And both the sentences are grammatical, though there is no overtly present subject. And the verb is supposed to be in infinitive form. How do we know that it is in infinitive form? You cannot have any inflection to it. Then we should be able to say protected him as an imperative in past, or showed him the way as an imperative in the past tense, but we don't say that. So the verb is in the infinitive form. It is not inflected for any inflection. And these sentences, that is these imperatives, are used to express directives. That is, we use them for commands, requests, and so on. The subject of imperatives is a second person subject. How do we know that? We know that from the following sentences. Because they allow only second person reflexive in them. Look at it. Look at these sentences in C. Protect yourself is perfectly alright. Protect yourselves is also perfectly alright. Protect myself is ungrammatical. Protect himself is ungrammatical. Herself, itself, themselves, they're all ungrammatical. Only grammatical ones are those with second person reflexives. That means the subject has to be second person. That is, if you have a second person reflexive in the object position, that has to be bound by a second person subject. Right? So based on this, what we say is the imperative sentences have second person subjects. Let's look at how this can be included in our grammar. So when we want to include imperatives in grammar, then grammar shall be allowed to have verbs with no inflection. Till now we have in the lexicon the verbs with inflection, that is either with third person singular s, or the past tense form ed, or past participle form ed, or present participle form ing. So but we need now grammars to have verbs with no inflections. Then we also need to add a new rule to the grammar. That rule must be non-headed. Non-headed because we have seen headed rules till now: head complement rule, or head specifier rule, or head modifier rule. We have seen only one non-headed rule till now, that is coordination rule, if you remember that. Then this is going to be another non-headed rule. The imperative rule has to be a non-headed rule, and that rule should allow a sentence with one daughter. That means you cannot have a subject, so there should be only a VP, right? That's only one daughter, and that cannot be head daughter. And also the constraint that the specifier of the daughter node should be second person. Right? The specifier of the daughter node, that is specifier of the VP, has to be second person, because the subject of the imperatives are all second person only. And also this rule should sanction a phrase whose mode value is directive. Remember, mode value of all verbs is proposition, but now when it occurs in the imperative sentence, the mode value becomes directive. Right? So what is the rule like? The rule is here. The rule is here. Imperative rule. Let's look at this part, the daughter part. This is your phrase. That is, it's a verb phrase. How is it a verb phrase? Because head value is a verb and it's a phrasal node. It's a verb phrase. And the verb phrase gets its form infinitive from the lexical daughter, from its daughter node head value. That is the verb. Then the specifier is second person only, the NP with a second person, and its semantics which we have index S. We are not giving the mode value here because the mode value will be whatever mode value it inherits from its head daughter. Usually that is a proposition. Then this is a verb phrase, and this verb phrase projects now here. What does it project? It projects a phrase with a head value verb, right? It looks like a then we cannot say the head feature principle works here because this phrase is not head daughter. We said the rule is non-headed, so this is not head daughter, it's a non-head daughter. So the head value has to be verb, and then specifier is null, complements null, then semantics is mode value directive, index is S. Right, so what do we understand from this rule? This rule just says that the projection of the verb phrase is a verb phrase with empty specifier and comps values and with a mode value directive. Right, this rule will sanction now imperatives. Let's look at a structural description of an imperative sentence. Look at the sentence here. Get a job. Get a job is an imperative, right? This is your VP. This is your VP. How? Get is a verb, a job is the NP. So the verb and its complement together makes the verb phrase. What is the feature structure of the verb phrase? Is it has specifier, NP, person, second. Right, second person. Comps null because a job is already attached to the word get and it becomes empty. Then head is of form infinitive. Mode value is proposition because get is a verb, its proposition value comes, index S and restriction 1. This is your VP. This VP has this projection now, right? In the projection, the specifier becomes null, but there is no specifier attached to it, right? But it becomes null. How? Because of your imperative rule. The imperative rule sanctions that the specifier has to be empty. Then comps, anyway it's empty, so it's empty here. And semantics again changes to directive, index S and restriction 1, right? What happens is your head feature principle, the valence principle and the semantic inheritance principle, they are not relevant at all in licensing S node. Why are they not relevant? Because head feature principle, valence principle, semantic inheritance principle function only with the head daughter, not with any other daughters. Here this is not head daughter, so these principles do not work at all. So S node now is licensed by only the imperative rule. Then the semantic compositionality principle identifies the restriction value of the mother with the restriction value of the daughter. That is the only principle which is functioning here now, right? Imperative rule applies and S is licensed with these things, but restriction value it obtains from the daughter node. The values of the features on the S node are dictated by the rule itself. Okay, that's the imperative. Now, how does anaphor binding happens in imperatives? Now, look at the sentence. Protect yourself or protect yourselves. Protect myself will not work. So, protect is the verb and NP is the complement. Head by head complement rule, these two come together. Then the comps value becomes empty here in the VP node and specifier stays as 1. Specifier is nothing but the first argument of the argument structure, second person. So then imperative rule takes care of this projection, which changes mode to directive. specifier becomes empty automatically, comps is automatically becomes empty, and restriction value, whatever restriction value you get here, that is carried on here. So since the specifier of imperative VPs is second, specifier of the imperative VPs is second person, the first argument in the argument structure of the verb, head verb, has to be second person by ARP. ARP is argument relation principle. By argument relation principle, whatever specifier, whatever complements you have, they are there on the argument structure. So the argument structure, you have second person here, and then that requires a second person reflexive. It cannot have anything else because they are co-indexed. So if you have myself, this is first person and this is second person, you cannot co-index them. You cannot co-index the subject and the object, right? So by imperative requirements, the second person argument requires a second person reflexive in the complement position. So principle A dictates that, and also AAP, that is anaphoric agreement principle, right? Anaphoric agreement principle, remember anaphoric agreement principle, which we have seen in the last video, right? Where agree, anaphors agree, right? The agree means they agree in person, number, gender. So here when you have a second person subject, then you have only second person reflexive or second person anaphor. So what have we learned in this video? We have seen that imperatives have a second person subject, their verbs are infinitive form, and they express directives. The grammar needs the verbs with no inflection, that is head value will have verb and form infinitive, and the imperative rule should be non-headed, and it should have only one daughter, that is a single daughter. Then there should be a constraint that the specifier has to be second person, then the mode value of the S is directive. See you in the next video.